Good evening, and welcome to Steely Library and Northern Kentucky University for another in the Friends of Steely Library's continuing series of literary events. Over the past several years, the Friends of Steely Library have presented the community with a strong series of cultural events, highlighting the work of a number of fine authors, poets, artists, and political leaders. Tonight's poetry reading by Gentry promises to extend that successful record. Besides the literary series, Steely Library has sought to enrich the cultural environment of the region in a variety of ways, including the visual arts. You will note that tonight's reading is being held in our new reading area and gallery, the Eva G. Ferris Reading Room and Gallery. The gallery hosts a rotating series of exhibitions of art by students, faculty, and artists from the surrounding community. On the third floor, you will find our glorious sculpture, Stegovagan Volksaurus, and if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. It is a gorgeous work by Pat Rennick, a Cincinnati artist who recently passed away. The work is truly monumental, 12 feet tall by 20 feet long by 7 feet wide. And it's just a gorgeous work. And I would suggest that the best way of seeing it is to go up on that elevator, and as you get off the elevator doors as they open, it's just spectacular. Next door in the Fine Arts Building, you'll see 3 fabulous portraits of exotic eagles, painted by noted nature artist John Ruthven, who is here tonight with his wife Judy. And they were brought to us by virtue of one of the Friends events that we did in, I think it was 2003? Yes, a long time ago. This fall, we will be rededicating a treasured painting from our special collections, Frank Duvenek's portrait of his mother, a gift of the Christopher Gist Society, of whom we have Christopher Gist members here tonight. And if you could raise your hands, and if everybody could please join me in a warm round of applause for them. The portrait of the artist's mother is a glorious work. It stands about this tall and came to us in very interesting ways. And we have sent it off to Cleveland for a complete restoration. And when it comes back, we're told it's going to be absolutely beautiful. We hope that you will enjoy the program this evening, and I invite you to take a few minutes to view our art as you leave tonight's program. Now, please join me in extending a warm welcome to the president of the Friends of Steely Library, Mr. Michael Murray.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful event. I have the honor of talking for just a few moments about the Friends of Steely Library here at Northern Kentucky University. The Friends of Steely Library are made up of friends, alumni, faculty, and staff who come together to support the mission and vision of the W. Frank Steely Library and Northern Kentucky University. We are so fortunate to have a wonderful group of people who come together on a regular basis to support the many areas here, and I'd like to just take a moment and ask our board members who are in attendance tonight to stand and be recognized. Board members? The Friends of Steely Library provides crucial dollars to support the W. Frank Steely Library's current needs. The Friends group has been very active here in the last several years in a number of areas. As you probably know, the literary series, who is chaired by Ron Ellis, does a wonderful job of bringing speakers to campus, and we are very fortunate to have his committee's efforts in promoting the university in the greater Cincinnati area. The W. Frank Steely Library is essential to the intellectual vitality of the university and attracts talented students, faculty, and scholars to the Highland Heights campus. In this great facility, it's one of the area's great research libraries and renowned for the depth and breadth of its collections. The library is central to the university's mission of teaching, research, and public service, and it is the one campus unit that serves all academic disciplines. As the library adapts to meet new challenges, private support is more important than ever before. The library of today offers innovative methods for teaching, research, and learning, and it provides immediate and easy access to its collections and services. The contribution of the Friends helps Steely Library acquire new resources, preserve existing materials, and keep pace with cutting-edge technologies that offer multiple formats and improved access to information. We hope you enjoy the program this evening. And a little down the road, when you receive our solicitation to join the Friends of Steely Library, we hope you would, enjoy being a part of us and joining our illustrious group. So, at this moment, I have the honor of introducing the chairman of the literary series, NKU alum and former staff member Ron Ellis, who is going to be introducing our speaker this evening. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and Ron, podium's yours.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Great to see you all here. Always love to be on campus. As an alum and an advancement officer for 27 years, the library was always an incredibly important place to many people, to myself and particularly because, as I've said in the past, this place, not even in its present form, but as it was when we found it in the early years, was a place I always felt that I could go and find, as I looked into the problems I was searching to try and solve, that everything was possible here within these books. And so it has been an important place for me forever. Kathy Stewart will tell you that if they were looking for me and they say, she would tell them, "Did you try the bookstore?" He wasn't there. Well, then he's probably in the library. So it's an important place for me, and we welcome you here for this reading by Jane Gentry in celebration of National Poetry Month. Poetry is always important, and the strength we find in it, maybe more so today than it has been for many, many years. So my own personal connection to Jane, I'm trying to put this up so I don't have to lean. In 2002, when I was working with the publisher on a book, the production editor sent me a copy of a book of poems titled A Garden in Kentucky. And she said that it was given to her by another editor who said, "I know you're working with a writer in Kentucky. Maybe he would like to have this book of poetry." I did, in fact, and she said to me, do you know the poet? I said, "No, I don't know the poet, but I've read her poems and I like them, and I hope at some point I'll be able to meet her." Well, it only took another 5 years before that meeting took place. When I was at a writers' conference in Kentucky's Pine Mountain State Park, I heard the poet Jane Gentry, the very poet who wrote the book A Garden in Kentucky, speak and read from her work. And I knew even then, as I heard her speak and read her poems, that I'd like her, this poet teacher from Versailles, Kentucky, just as much as I enjoyed her poetry. And I certainly have. She's been a great friend and a colleague. So, Jane Gentry, who just completed her tenure as Kentucky's most recent poet laureate. She's fresh off the reading and signing and lecture tour. Congratulations. She's here to celebrate poetry with her own reading, but first I want to tell you a little bit more about her, and then I'll refer to my notes for this for sure. Jane Gentry Vance, who publishes as Jane Gentry, was born in central Kentucky on a farm at Athens. Her poetry collections include her most recent volume, Portrait of the Artist as a White Pig, which Bobby Ann Mason called gentle, calm meditations of exquisite detail and power, and A Garden in Kentucky, which I just expressed my love for. She has also published a chapbook, A Year in Kentucky, and a short volume of local history, Looking Back at Athens, with William M. Lamb. Most recently, she co-edited for the Kentucky Arts Council, 5 Kentucky Poets Laureate, which is an anthology designed to introduce high school students to contemporary Kentucky poetry. We have some of those copies of those books here tonight. As an English professor at the University of Kentucky, Jane has won the UK Alumni Association's Great Teacher Award and conducts poetry writing workshops, teaches in the honors program, and advises JAR, which is a student-edited literary magazine at UK. Her undergraduate degree is from Hollins University, her MA from Brandeis, and her PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her poems have appeared in numerous literary journals, including the Swanee Review, Hollins Critic, Harvard Magazine, Southern Poetry Review, Appalachian Heritage, and our own Journal of Kentucky Studies. And that's many, many others, believe me. Her work has been widely anthologized, appearing in collections as diverse as Contemporary Poems in the Mythic Tradition, Elvis in Oz. I love that one particularly. the American Voice Anthology of Poetry, the Kentucky Anthology, 200 Years of Writing in the Bluegrass State, Aftershocks, the Poetry of Recovery for Life-Shattering Events, Abraham Lincoln of Kentucky, and in the University Press of Kentucky's forthcoming anthology, Kentucky Burgoo, an anthology of contemporary Kentucky poetry. She was awarded a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship for Graduate Study and is the recipient of 2 Al Smith Fellowships from the Kentucky Arts Council. And she has held fellowships at Yaddo in Saratoga Springs, New York, and at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts in Lynchburg. In November 2008, she arranged and participated in a reading of Kentucky poetry at the Library of Congress, and this past February read her poem, Alexander Gardner's November 8, 1863 photograph of Lincoln at the Kennedy Center as part of the Kentucky Humane Council's On Lincoln, a celebration of the Lincoln bicentennial. And I could go on and on and on, but I won't. Please welcome Jane Gentry.
Hi. I am so glad to be here in this beautiful library and among the friends of the library. To begin tonight, I would like to think for just a minute about what poetry is. It came to me, I'm pretty slow about this, maybe 3 years ago, that poems, which I had always tended to think of from my student days as being very different from stories, that poems actually are stories. They are stories in another form. They're often incipient stories. They're often just a fragment of a story. But poetry, of course, started as story among the great epic poets of all the folk cultures. So it came as a liberating and happy insight to me that the urge to make a poem is exactly the same kind of urge that the Anglo-Saxon bard felt when he, high on mead, he leapt up on the table in the mead hall and began to recite the tale of Grendel or whatever. I want to quote to you a couple of other thoughts about poetry. The first of these from Guy Davenport, who was, if there ever was, a modern Renaissance man, who was a wonderful fiction writer, a wonderful translator of the Greek classics, a painter. He lived in Lexington and wrote in Lexington and died in 2004. But this is what he has to say about poetry, and it reinforces the idea that modern day poets, even though the lyrics that we write, the type of poetry we tend to write more of, are very minuscule forms of story. But Davenport says, the poet in our time does what poets have always done: given a tongue to dumbness, celebrated wonderments, complained of the government, told tales, found sense where none was there to be perceived, found nonsense where we thought there was sense. In short, made a world for the mind and the body to inhabit. And the second thought that I want to suggest before I read is from the poet Wallace Stevens, the insurance man who was the also a great poet while working with his figures, his numbers all the time. He said, "Poetry must resist the intelligence almost successfully." Poetry must resist the intelligence almost successfully. I want to begin by reading a few poems about visual art. I wanted to do this because I was so struck by your wonderful new sculpture down there on the second floor, and the wonderful things that I have heard about the eagle paintings. I know that the visual arts are very important to you here and are very important to the aura, the atmosphere of this wonderful library. Sculpture, painting, photographs are close kin to each other and close kin to many kinds of poems, I think, in that each stops a moment, plucks a moment out of the flow of the stream of time and isolates it, frames it, puts it in a frame or on a pedestal or wherever for us really to see, to consider, to contemplate. And poems often do the same kind of thing, taking a moment and freezing it. The first poem is called Nike of Samothrace, and it is from Portrait of the Artist as a White Pig. Nike, as I suppose anybody who reads magazines or wears tennis shoes knows, it is the Greek goddess of victory. And this particular sculpture, the Nike of Samothrace, stands today and has for at least 100 years, at the head of the great staircase in the Louvre, the great art museum in Paris. The statue was made somewhere between 250 and 306 AD. And this Nike, this victory, is carved as the figurehead of a ship. And so she stands there at the head of the stairs as if the wind is blowing back her garments and her wings. She is called the Winged Victory. Nike of Samothrace. All victory is winged. Goddess, you lean forward from the prow of your ship, the folds of your chiton swept back by the wind you ride upon at the top of the main stairway in the Louvre. You took this form in a lost town on an Aegean island where husbands gossiped and bartered in the agora, and wives busied themselves in the dark rooms of their houses, hearing the slap of men's feet on the paving stones. Near the harbor, in a work shed veiled in dust, you rose up, plane by plane, in the mind's eye of a stonecutter who, over years, laboriously discovered you, chip by chip, inside the body of a stone. When at last he finished nicking, filing, polishing, giving you the final caresses of shapeliness, could he remember any more than we the victory you commemorate? For now you are victory, the ache of exultation no sooner felt than gone. You bear into the wind always your wings of stone spread to catch the lift of air. And deep in your rocky bones a Thracian breeze still blows, exciting your fleshy nipple under the wind-sheared cloth. Tides of people swell around the bow of your broken ship. The lightning of their cameras fixes you time and again in the chiffon of winning. Your torso, robust as the sea wind pushing you, torques against all that is fleet. You stretch back against these currents, the feathery stone of your resisting wings. Thank you. This second little poem is also about a piece of classical Greek sculpture, this time architectural sculpture. It's called A Photograph of Holland's Abroaders Before the Caryatids. The Caryatids are stone maidens who are also columns. And the most famous set of caryatids is on the Acropolis in Athens, where they form the columns of a porch of the Erechtheum, which is a smaller temple off to the side of the Parthenon. And in my undergraduate school, a good part of each class went to Europe for a year, the ones with money enough to do so. And every summer in the Holland's magazine, there would be a picture, a photograph of all these beautiful, carefree 20-year-olds with the wind blowing their clothes and their hair in front of these stone maidens on the Acropolis. A photograph of Holland's Abroaders before the Caryatids. 30 years and it will be a different picture. Husbands do set houses on girls' heads. Hair turns as gray as rock, and eyes in made-up faces take the stony look. They travel, but they never learn as do those ponderous maids beneath the rock. Worn down by the gravity of time, but serving still, held by the common chore, they understand the stone that keeps them down. That pun on understand, I must say, came to me with a real little electric thrill of fun. This next poem that I want to read you about, a photograph, I suppose is not precisely a work of art. It's a photograph that was in my grandmother's belongings, and I was lucky enough to get it. I'm going to pass it around, and I want you to look at it carefully. It's a picture of an old dog lying on a plank porch in the sun. And be sure when it comes to you to read the back of it. It says, it was written by my grandmother. It says, Papa's dog, hi. That's the name of the dog, hi. He laid here until he died, waiting for Papa. He would not eat. He loved him. So this poem is called Great Grandfather's Dog, Hi, on a tintype. Now, you see, it's not really a tintype, but this is a poem. On a sunny porch he lies, head on paws, eyes strangely lighted, forlorn among failing images, empty rocker, child in the door, sun squares on old planks. A dog in a brown study, he lies still in the tintype, losing itself to light. On the back, words stay as Moggy wrote them. Papa's dog, hi. He laid here until he died, waiting for Papa. He would not eat. He loved him. I see the dog circle slowly after his tail on the warm boards and settle for this posture of loyalty. Bleaching now, white as bones buried in the yard, high hoards all his bones, bones lost to earth, bones of his master's child. After the lightened breath mumbles them all clean, after the sun's tongue licked this picture. One more of these photograph poems. I think this is the most beautiful of all the wonderful photographs of Abraham Lincoln. It's the photograph taken in the November before he died in April, the November of 1863. Did he die in 65? Okay, 64. But it was before he went to Gettysburg, very shortly before he went to deliver the Gettysburg Address. Well, I know I have it here. Alexander Gardner's, November 8th, 1863. Now, obviously, I've got my chronology kind of messed up here. Photograph of Lincoln. His picture in an oval frame hung above our sofa in my childhood. I saw the sadness in his face, knew that he knew sorrow, his left eye always seeing something darker than the right. Gardner's lens saw him as he was days before he went to Gettysburg. Shadows everywhere except his lighted brow, the left face older than the right. The perfect bow of his upper lip set straight across the fullness of the lower. The furrows from his nose down to his mouth, above the shock of dark beard touched with white. His headstrong hair barely tames into a part. His eyebrows hood unsparing eyes, denying nothing that they see. His loose left eye, will to baleful focus with the right, sees what the other doesn't quite. His bow tie sits askew. His left ear swells bigger than the right. No symmetry, but something rarer and more beautiful. He struggled long to claim his better self, open friend, conscientious enemy, smitten father, patient husband of a silly wife, political tactician, teller of stories, speaker from a clear heart, wily commander-in-chief, all this in the puzzle of his human face. But an unfamiliar light beacons there, shines from his brow above the darkness of his eyes. Sanity, as odd where people are as the pileated bird, but oh, it freed a people and kept a nation whole. I'd like to read several poems centered on family. Family pleasures, family sorrows, and some of the things in between those two extremes. The first poem is called Leaving Lucy. And it's about an experience that I'm sure some of you have had and some of you are yet to have of leaving a child at college for the first time, taking a child away. The first scene of this poem is a Halloween scene when Lucy is a child. Leaving Lucy, September 1990. "You'll never have to worry about that one," Jean said, as Lucy, the princess in my old prom dress and bridesmaid's tiara, squared herself between the timid ghost and cat to receive her treat at the dark door. This afternoon, I leave her in New York. I am ready. Her new comforter is on her bed. Her texts are bought and stand like a rainbow on her shelf. At the hotel, we close our bags, find the key, double-check her schedule. She cries beside her father on the sofa. Because my body hollows and my hands begin to flame, I leave the room. I say, I'll look under the beds. Alone, I sink into the bed. The room blackens around me. My eyes fall into their own emptiness. I am a child. Long ago, someone is leaving me alone. It is dark. A door closes. Cicadas shake the night trees. Lucy meets me in the doorway, come to see what's wrong. The tears we cry are old. We are not two bodies. As I pull away from the curb, she blurs. Her shape in the rearview mirror moves toward its own door. My mother's clothes. On a December night, I brought them from her nursing home, forgot them on the porch under stars, brittle with cold. I left them hanging far from the warmth of her body, away from fires that keep the winter from us. Her clothes, familiar to me as her skin, the wool plaid dress she made, her favorite jacket, hunter green, with its lapel pin, DWG, my father gave her. The shape of the body holding as they swung from their shoulders on the porch, arms empty against the weather. To another entirely different stage of life. This poem is called To My Grandson in the Womb on Washington Heights. My daughter Lucy lives in Washington Heights on the northernmost tip of Manhattan, which is the highest point of Manhattan, and it's where George Washington defended the island during the Revolutionary War, and the Fort Washington is there. I had two daughters, and I was used to the kinds of feelings that having daughters gave me. And when I learned that Lucy was to have a son, it made me feel very frightened and vulnerable for him, and this really surprised me. But I discovered partly through the process of writing this poem that I think that it has to do with the way, more explicitly than girls, though girls are not excluded from this, but more directly, boys are liable to the violence that lurks in our human selves. To my grandson in the womb on Washington Heights. I lie on my back in Kentucky summer grass, my hat over my face carried toward sleep by the narcotic sunlight and the cicadas' antiphonies. In this bright little darkness, my eyes sting, picturing you cupped safely in Lucy's belly. She in the sensible shoes, since she snagged her high heel and pitched to her knees in the street. How strange you are, hidden, distant, other, carried on your own tide of blood, grown from an egg into the changeling the ultrasound reveals. Here in this stillness, a moor burrs on the next farm, and in the lake a fish jumps. But underneath your house, the subway rumbles like a troll, shaking already the jelly of your bones. Along for the ride on weekday mornings, you board the A train for Times Square. I fear for you in that pell-mell as never for my daughters. Someday an Agamemnon might summon you to arms. Enemies may fix you in their crosshairs, you without even bones to speak of. I pray that you will not be flung from your proud city's heights, burst like Hector's baby in the dust beneath the walls of conquered Troy. From this day terror, I am roused by hoofbeats on the ground I lie upon. I fling my hat aside and, dazzled by the sun, make out a buck with half-grown antlers dancing toward me. At my eruption, he turns to stone. The sunlight showers around him. His dark eyes surge and deepen before he rears, whirls, and rumbles back into the shadows, parrying the sword of light. And somehow it seemed better. Seemed better after that. One last one of these. This one about the grandson who's the reassurance for whom I received in that previous poem. This poem is called Sleeping in the Bed with 3-year-old Jake. You curl backward in the curve of my body, your head under my nose, your fresh body hot as a sausage, your scent flaming from your scalp, the roots of your hair, and I revel as in a flower, its petals licking my nostrils. My sleep beside your sleep lightens when you pitch yourself around in bed like a sparking pinwheel's pleasure in itself, or a puzzle piece shifting for its own fit. I wake near dawn because the round stone of your head butts against my back, its deep heat burning through my gown. That fire sunk in the rock of yourself will not gutter until I've long gone dark and cold. Even then, those tongues, orange and indigo, may sometimes say my name. Okay, a couple of poems about the other end of life. This one also takes some of its imagery, or takes the basis of its imagery from Greek mythology. The reason this comes to me and I use it in my poems is because I have taught either the Iliad or the Odyssey every fall for going on 37 years now. And I have a bad memory, and so I reread it, one or the other of them, every fall. This poem is called Diana of a Certain Age Takes a Bath. As you'll remember, Diana is the goddess of the hunt, childbirth, marriage, paradoxically. She's a virgin goddess. And the story that this draws upon, this poem, is the story of her having gone hunting in the woods, and at the end of a hard, happy day of the chase, she finds a beautiful pool in the forest and strips off her knickers or whatever goddesses wear when they hunt, and takes a bath. And a human hunter, a man named Actaeon, comes upon her and is watching from the edge of the forest. And when she sees him, she's infuriated that he is spying on her. And she changes him into a stag. And his hounds, his own hounds, chase him down and kill him. Diana of a certain age takes a bath. My body is drifting out of its familiar shape. like a great slow cloud in August. My muscled calves deflate, my cheek line sags, my waist fattens. After the chase, I still enjoy my bath, the luxury of perfume on my breasts, my neck, my thighs, as Nefertiti did, or Cleopatra, just as in my salad days. But sometimes in the mornings now, fresh from sleep, I skin off my gown before the mirror, and the girl I used to be, my flawless, pearly body suddenly appears to me, rises tranquil as the moon gliding out of clouds, and strikes me breathless, as at the forest pool when I spied Actaeon in his blind, his arrows useless in his quiver, drinking in new quarry, the shining of my body, fulsome and deadly as his hunter's eye. Terrified as the deer I turned him into, I too am dogged by what I know is coming. I'd like to conclude with two short love poems. This little series is from Portrait of the Artist as a White Pig. The first one is called April in Your Garden. The day falls open out of the sky. Even the cedar, bent from the wet late snow, seems to rise up into it like the richest voice in a chorus. Your body is as real as a tree. I sit outside in bright sunshine and see your movements tap like a ghost behind the screen of the open window. My hand gripping this pen suddenly yearns toward home, between your neck and shoulder, inside the glove of your hand. Places right as the oriole's nest I see rising, falling on invisible currents high in the ash tree, among green fists of new leaves. I'm going to slip one more tiny one in here. This one is called Sleeping with You. Sleeping with You. We climb onto the motorcycle of sleep. I flatten myself against your back, lock one arm around your waist, and off we roar toward the rallies of night. The marks of all our years streaming behind us, like my white silk scarf rippling, useless, riding the dark wind. And then finally, this poem too takes a lot of takes the basis of its imagery from the Odyssey, from the story of Odysseus, who was away for 20 years and came back to his wife Penelope, who was, after a fashion, waiting for him. This poem is called Penelope's Night Out. Last night, the fall crescent drifted down a summer sky. The crickets sang their eternal one-note chorus. You and I went to a party in a lovely room filled with likenesses of the hosts in the beauty of their youth and with the books they cherish. That room opened to a porch that gave upon a woods. I watched its stand of handsome tree trunks fade in the twilight. I chatted up a temptress in whose thrall you once were held. After we drained the sweet liquor from the last cubes in our glasses, we said goodbye to friends and to the pleasant new acquaintances. We stepped into a moonless darkness and drove, companionably touching hands, thighs in the golden light of the dashboard. At home, we stepped out of our clothes and laughed again at a conversation I'd overheard. We spoke, too, of Calypso's presence there. Then, as we lay beside each other, sleepily touching, with our mouths, our fingers, our viscous skin, a wakefulness surprised us like a wave, rolled us into the ecstasy of this unlikely night, and dropped us, sleeping soundly as you did, Odysseus, surrounded by all your treasure on the strange shore of home. Thank you all so much. You've been such a kind and attentive audience, and I've really enjoyed reading to you, and it's such a pleasure to be in this wonderful building. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We have light refreshments, and we hope you'll stop by. We have a selection of Jane's books here for purchase and signing as well. Thank you for being here. Be supportive of the library. We need your help. Look forward to seeing you here again. Be safe.
Thank you.